thank you for joining. We're going to kick it off, and yeah, we're going to go through a bunch of updates and features that are going to be presented in the new console. So yeah, go ahead and take it away. Who's
Awesome.
leading this? I forget.
I'll get us started. Thanks, Josh.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah, like Josh mentioned, I just want to share a little bit about Pagoda's focus and how that's evolved, and then talk through a new feature called Shareable Projects, which will be live soon. Do a little bit of a sneak peek of Pagoda Templates, and then Tiffany's going to take a data tool or give us a data tools update. So I'll get started. So I think at a very high level, like Pagoda is successful if Near is successful. And like the way that our entire leadership team communicates this, and we all believe it, is growing the number of developers on Near is the paramount goal. That's why Pagoda exists right now. So this funnel basically just goes from all of the developers in the world to developers that have many, many users that have a project that's on mainnet on Near. And like any funnel, there's drop-offs in this funnel. So there are many, many developers across the world, but we need to grow the number of developers that are currently on mainnet with a ton of users. So the way that we're going to do this is focus on these two over the next few months, and this is essentially like the top end of this funnel. So we can't do a ton to push the number of developers in the world. We can tell our friends how awesome it is to be a developer, and that's probably the extent of what Pagoda and the team's going to do. But developers that can build on Near and developers that are building on Near is something that we really want to push forward. And how we do this for developers that can build on Near, this is like just making Near accessible to as many people as possible. And the primary ways that we're doing this is with the JavaScript stack and the Rust tooling. So like we've always been very focused on having Rust as like the main contracting language for Near. And lately, we've been able to release a JavaScript SDK that's opened up to 20 million plus JavaScript developers. So this is growing the number of developers that are able to build on Near without having to learn a ton of new technology. And then when we look at developers that are building on Near, this is a lot of the specific products that we can launch in order to make it really, really easy to get started, to build, to flourish while building a dApp. So with that being said, I'd love to focus on one specific new feature, which is how we're making it as easy as possible to get started. And I'm actually going to pass it to Charles to walk through this one.
Cool. Thanks, Austin. Let me share my screen. All right, so what you can see now is a view of the console on the contract screen. This is showing a demo build of the console. And the new element that's here is this affordance to share. So once I click share on this project, I can choose the projects that I want to make available to the audience to whom I'm sharing. So I can select all or some subset of the contracts here. It's showing me which of these contracts have an embedded API, which of them do not. And when I click this link, what this allows me to do is to share this directly on a social media network, whatever I choose to do. And then for the people who click this link, whether or not they have a console session or they're logged into the console, they will be able to see all of the contracts that I shared to them with a few updates in the UI that make it clear that, hey, you are not logged in. You can if you like, but we still allow them to have all the functionality of the contracts module, including interacting with contracts, looking at the contracts API. You can send function request calls here. So complete functionality to exercise any of the methods available in the contracts that you're sharing for the contracts which have an embedded API. They can also view the analytics to see this demographic and performance information that we show on this pre-configured dashboard for the contracts, and change that to filter to any specific contract or dates that they're interested in. So the full functionality of the console for the contracts and analytics module, almost a full functionality. You can't add any new contracts, but you can get the value, hopefully get the value of the contracts here, and then explore the other areas, such as the indexers page, and then the alerts. Well, we currently have a splash page here that can explain what you can do with alerts, and then just let you know if you want to experience those benefits, go ahead and sign up. Similarly, for the API, if you want to leverage the Pagoda APIs and get the API keys, you'll just need to sign up. Another cool thing here is if I'm interacting with these contracts in this shareable mode, I can also share this to other people as well and select some contracts, get a link, and make those available to others. So this is just the beginning of what we're looking to do to open up the console to expose more of the value to users before they decide that they want to sign up for an account, and kind of ease the onboarding into different areas of the console. So just a sneak peek into the shareable project features before it goes live, which will be sometime soon. And we'd love to hear back from you on any feedback you have on this.
Awesome, thanks, Charles. I'm gonna take over screen share again, and just jump into another section. So, like, Shareable Projects helps to get people into consoles so they can start using some of the amazing features. But feedback that we've heard from the community over our recent just talking to the community, we were at NearCon, we were just doing some user interviews, and we've gotten pretty consistent feedback that Web3 seems hard, it seems challenging, like it seems difficult, and we've heard things like, what are those commands that I need to learn in order to get started to build and deploy? Like, how do I get started? Where should I get started? I've built web apps. How are Web3 apps different? Web3 apps different, and just like some concepts in Web3 can be a little bit confusing. And all of this kind of sums up to Web3 seems hard, but it really doesn't need to be. And the way that we're tackling this problem is with Pagoda Templates. And I'm going to just jump into the actual prototype really quickly. We're in prototype land, so unfortunately this hasn't been launched yet. And again, we'd love feedback on any piece of this, particularly what templates the community would like to see. But the ethos of why we're doing this is that we just want to give the Near community the best foundation in order to build their dApps on top of. So how we're doing this is by creating a bunch of Pagoda templates that are entire applications, ranging in size and ranging in complexity. You can see a few here that we've mocked up, like adding decentralized storage to your application, building a customer loyalty program, generating NFTs, and maybe in the future we'll be able to convince the community to also build some of these templates. And for example, like if Ref Finance wanted to build like a swap template that people could build on top of. So again, like I mentioned, the entire benefit of this is just a really solid foundation in order to build off of, like audited contracts. And the way I'd like to show off one particular example, which is a loyalty program. So the way that we're displaying this is we've got the key features, why this is important for Web3, and then a system architecture diagram. So exactly how you can use that, or exactly how this application is structured, and how there's some Web2 components, some Web3 components, and then pieces that are bridging across. The entire the way that we intend for developers to use these templates is to fork and build the project using our automated deployments, add your own code, and then use our automated CI/CD. So I'm just going to walk through a really quick visual on this. So on the left side, you have that Pagoda template. And when you click on that use this template button, what's going to happen is we're going to fork a GitHub repo automatically. We're going to build and deploy it using GitHub Actions, so the contract as well as the front end. Then the developer, you'll have that GitHub, you'll have that project in your own repo. You can clone it, you can make changes to it, and then you'll be able to do commits and pushes. And again, using the automation from GitHub Actions, you'll be able to automatically deploy that project to either testnet or mainnet, and then interact with it and sort of do that entire feedback loop, all within the Pagoda platform. So there's a lot more to come on this feature. And the first templates that we're launching with are boilerplate templates. So leveraging like a create near app type templates where you can just get started and use like the most simple foundation to build off, decentralized storage with IPFS, customer loyalty with anonymous wallets, NFT minting with IPFS, and then an iOS example with an in-game economy. So those are the ones that we're slotted to build. There's going to be more. And then eventually we'd love the community to start contributing. So before we open it up to allow community submissions, we'd love to hear from the community what feature, what templates you would like to see. And this could be anything ranging from, hey, I'd just love to see this cool example, to I tried to build this and it was really complex. I'd love to see like a concrete example. So you can always reach us on Twitter, throw it in the chat, or we also have that feedback widget within the console product, right in the bottom right corner, that little speech bubble. You can always I check those, so you can submit requests right through there. Awesome. I think we're going to switch gears now, and I'm going to pass it over to Tiffany to walk through the data product developer journey and some of the data products.
Thank you, Austin. For similar to what we have been discussing in like the overall development in terms of on Web3, there are a lot of components to it. On the data side, there are also a lot of components that historically have been on our developers' mind. So as you might or might not know, historically, in order to interact or develop or grab data from the near blockchain, you usually need to pay an RPC node, or you run to your own RPC node, and you need to also use that node to power your whole indexing infrastructure to build your indexer from the ground up. There are a lot of code that go into it. And actually, in order to output that into an API that can directly, source data into your front end, usually you want to need something like, AWS, Google, or GCP, or like Postgres database, and then you do a lot of, data processing, ETL, have your APIs out there, and you probably need more than one person in this whole process. And Near Data Stack is here. Pagoda Near Data Stack is here to actually simplify that whole process. And you only need one person with this one tool, and you can go forward and go ahead and focusing on your development. So next slide, please. Cool. Yeah. So I'm going to make a very abrupt statement here. From the data perspective, actually, blockchain is essentially just a gigantic big database, if you think about it. And going through that, when you think about writing, or when you think about a database or a relationship with a database, right? There are basically two relationships. One is you write to the database and to store all your information. Another is you pull from your database. So after you deploy your contract, what are the cases when you write to your database? It's basically when you send transactions, and it's available there in the RPC APIs that Pagoda API provide, as well as the other blockchain RPC API also have the standard. So this is very straightforward. From that, the read part is where we're mostly confused, and is complicated, and historically we also have been developers saying that it's confusing, it's a lot of step, a lot of things to run to make it accurate and everything. So when you think about reading from a database, what do you do usually historically, like if it's not in a blockchain world? You will write a bunch of SQL query to query from that database, and also understand the relationship mapping, which is the very standard object relationship mapping, or process that I'm assuming a lot of people are familiar with. And we actually mimic that and started to think about, okay, why does it have to be different if we're thinking about blockchain as a big database? So we come up with this idea of query API, which essentially does the same thing on a blockchain, and we really take care of a lot of the nuances that are happening there. And some delightful surprises actually come along the way. So for a lot of the data that you will need most likely for like transactions, accounts, all of these stuff that you will need most often, it's a building block of your DApp. We are actually already compiled and created all of those for you. So it's probably even easier in the blockchain world if you think about it this way, right? So yeah, with all that being said, let's go to the next slide and dive a little bit more about what the query API is. Basically, it's defining your query and your aggregation rules. It's what do you want to get? How do you want to aggregate it? Do you want to have certain filter by certain like account transactions? Do you want to filter it by like ordering it by some maximum minimum rules? Or if you think about the SQL, you want to group by anything, right? You define everything you need there, and we'll take care of the rest. We'll literally take care of the rest. We'll compile it, aggregate it, indexing, whatever the magic power happened, and we'll output to your own APIs for you. And all of this process I'm defining, the queries actually is all integrated with our predefined APIs. So when you are defining your queries on what you want to build or what you want to get out of, a lot of the ones are already available. So you can just use those, build on top of those in terms of how you want to aggregate it, what the time frame is. And all of those are near tools integrated. So you don't have to switch tools, get out, or anything like that. It is going to be all embedded within the whole experience of developing on with Pagoda. So once you have your own APIs, you can use that into any cases that you want, right? You can use that as like a trigger in your own DApp to trigger some functionality. You can use that in your front end to display whatever data you need. And we also built some extension on top of this. So webhooks, in order to push the data to you, so you don't need to pull and pull and pull again and again, and oracles and even Zapier connections, or even other layer one or two blockchain connectors, are all going to be available for all of that powerful extension that really enables you in this multi-chain world, and connecting the off-chain data, and even use those data to power some of your social media notifications, or very interesting magical things that could happen. So really unlock the growth part of that too. So next slide, please. So the predefined APIs that I mentioned is currently released as a beta, as an enhanced API. And currently available is the token information around NFTs, tokens, near all your historical balances, transactions, as an aggregation. And we will be aiming for this to be able to directly get your data that you most often use, like mentioned, with covering more areas, essentially. So, you'll be able to really filter your blocks by timestamp in the future, and you'll be able to filter through your events logs and go through all of those. And you'll be able to filter all the transactions by like who sent it, who receives it, the signers, go through them, inspect them one by one. So really gives you a head start and focus on your ideas. Check it out in the console if you have not yet. And stay tuned. So what's coming? Like I said, blocks by time, transaction search, event search. And really, with all of these two things combined together and all the tools we enable on top, really say bye to indexer building. No more that word. No more that word in the future and in your ecosystem. That's our goal. And no more expensive queries, no like a bunch of holds to the RPC, no more like very big RPC state because you write everything in it. That's really our goal, to really make it as easy as possible. And it's just all familiar things that you are already familiar with. It's just no different from any writing or reading from a database. Great.
Beautiful. I love the passion. That's so awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. I think we do actually have one question from Matthias. Will I be able to use the API to group by transaction quantity and amounts in order to find whale accounts on Near?
So we sort of define, that's a great question. We sort of define our APIs in terms of the transactional APIs that, it's any DApps will use on a daily basis, and they will use that to power their DApp. What you were talking about is this more like analytical data that is very, very interesting for sure. We actually have this whale account sort of planned for our Explorer stats page, actually. So that data should be, we have the analytical database already available. There's extension on top of Explorer database. I'll share the link in the chat once I find it. There are a lot of existing tables that you can use to aggregate to get that information for now. And in the future, we will have this kind of like a whale list, and you can just pull from that instead. So yes, it will be an API in the future, but it will not be an enhanced API or predefined API for that purpose, but it will be available through some other mechanism.
Awesome. Obligatory 5-second wait to see if there's any other questions. Like always, I just want to, like the screenshot that's on the screen right now, and like the very bottom right corner of console is a place to give feedback. We do look at this. So if you don't have questions now, but you have some in the future, or you're watching the recording of this 10 years from now, you should be able to submit your questions through there. Cool. All right. I think we can wrap it up then. Thanks,
Awesome.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Thanks.